Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor. This is your host, Danielle.
And Kayla. Hey.
And this week we are talking about the topic of reciprocity. That is kind of a big word. I say to my students all the time, anytime there's a word that's outside of our regular day-to-day vocab, I automatically classify it as a big word. I'm sure most of you know what reciprocity means, but for those who don't, it's what we're breaking down this week is the give and take of friendship. And in any relationship, there's going to be some give and some take. And we want to talk about how to balance that with your friends and basically just talk about how you don't want to take advantage of someone. You shouldn't have people be taking advantage of you. So we're going to break that down this week. Before we get started, though, I wanted to say, I think, Kayla, we may have brought this up in our earlier episode, but did you know that we have an email address just for the podcast?
Yes.
Friendeavorpodcast@gmail.com. You can submit your questions, your comments. You got feedback on a certain episode, we would love to hear it. You have an episode idea, something you've been dealing with. We're hoping to introduce a segment where we can bring in your questions, kind of like a town hall kind of thing, and answer them. And it might be a question that someone else has. And so we want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. And if you got something to add, we definitely want to integrate it.
Yeah, guys. And please feel free to be as vulnerable as you're comfortable with, because we really want to get these questions answered. We're not just here to ramble. We're here to help you. So
absolutely. That is so true. We didn't start this just to hear our own voices. We started this so our voices could speak and help people, not just to be like, hey, we got a podcast. This is to help our community and people who we haven't even met yet. So,
and if you visit www.friendeavor.net, there is a form on the homepage where you can submit your own question. So there's kind of a quick way to do that too. So we will link that in the show notes.
Yeah, any way you want to chime in, we would love to hear it. If you have our phone numbers, text us. You know, there's no limit to the way that we can get people integrated into this podcast. All right, let's dive into episode 9, reciprocity. Reciprocity in friendship, like I said, is give and take. It's a fundamental concept. So right at the foundation that reflects the mutual and balanced exchange of care. So like you've got people who care about you, and you in turn should care about them. You've got people that support you, you in turn should support them. Everything from actual physical tasks to emotional investment. It covers everything in the individuals within a friendship.
And when something is reciprocal in a friendship, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to repay your friend's kindness by doing the exact same thing. So they get you a $200 gift for Christmas. You don't have to get them a $200 gift for Christmas if that's outside your budget. Reciprocity isn't about matching up exactly, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's not a quid pro quo. You do exactly this, I'll do exactly that. It is way more of balance, and we're going to get into some examples of how you show give and take. And as we get into these categories, you might give in one area and receive more in another area. So we'll definitely explore those as we move on. But we really just want to stress that it encompasses the idea that both parties, or if it's a friend group, everyone every party in the group, in the friendship, give and receive, creating a sense of, equality. There's not a hierarchy, it's equality and the trust in the relationship. So let's go ahead and dive into some key aspects of reciprocity in friendship. First and foremost, we have emotional support. You got to have give and take and emotional support. Friends provide emotional support to each other during good times and bad times. You know, the challenges in life don't aren't the only things that require having emotional support. People should be happy when you're happy and joyful when you're
Yeah.
joyful and celebrating when you're celebrating. Reciprocity in this exact context means that when one friend is going through a difficult period, the other one is there to listen and empathize and offer comfort. You don't have to drag
Right.
yourself down to their level of their conflict. Like, you don't have to throw yourself into a conflict just to be at their same level, but
Right.
you do need to offer support and care, that emotional support, and it should be mutual, so that if you do find yourself in a situation where you're on the down and out, your friends, your friend or your friend, whatever the situation is for you, will be there for you. And it shouldn't even be you have to ask them to be there for you. That's really what
Right.
it we will get to, is that it's expected in your friendship.
Right. And I've also seen a behavior in some friendships where one friend isn't exactly heavy on words of affirmation. So emotional support for them looks more like comical relief. And I mean, some people that's okay with them. But for me, I do not dig that.
Yeah.
when, yeah, when I need emotional support from a friend, I definitely, I mean, a little bit of comical relief, whatever. But I definitely like words of affirmation when I'm going through challenging times.
Yeah, and your pain, like, while you may be able to make some slight jokes about it with your friends, it cannot turn into a laughing point, especially outside of the friend group. Like, if you have an ex that is kind of like, you know, it's okay to make like small jokes about in your friend group, but it's not something that you
Right.
should be making large scale jokes about in front of people who are lower tiers on the friendship pyramid, or people you don't
Right.
even know. Like, that's a disrespect to you and to your ex. Anytime you involve extra people inside of an area that requires emotional support. Moving on to number 2, I believe we've had this example in like almost every episode we've had, or a variation of this, because it fits across almost every topic that we're going to talk about in friendship. But time and attention, we talked about quality time last week, like all types of quality time. Um, but just because one friend responds differently to quality time or whatever doesn't mean that they don't need it. They just might need it in a different form. So spending time together is super crucial to maintaining, not even like building, but just like sustaining a friendship. You need that time together. So reciprocity means that both friends make the effort. It's not just one always trying to schedule things. It's not one always trying to chase the other one down. Both people make the effort to spend time together, to plan activities, to prioritize their friendship in a busy life. Kayla and I both know are very familiar with busy lives. Right after I shoot this episode, I've got a meeting, and then I have a rehearsal, and then tomorrow night I have another rehearsal, and then Saturday I have a bunch of stuff. So it's like we're both making time to make this work, because we both have to give and take to make something work. It's not just a one-sided, I'm not constantly chasing her, she's not constantly chasing me. Our lives are just busy, but we have to make intentional time to give this joint project attention. Do you have any instances that come to mind where you realized that you were giving more to one friendship than you were receiving?
Um, I think what I see is people using the excuse, well, I'm just not a planner. And it's like, well, okay, maybe you're not a planner, but if you have friends and you care about your friends and you genuinely want to spend time with them, you're gonna make time to make that happen.
You're suddenly going to develop the skills to be a planner if you wanted to be
Right.
with them.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, that reminds me of our episode about the friendship pyramid, the difference between like a good friend and a best friend. There are quite a few differences, but it boils down to time spent and desire to spend time with someone who says like, oh yeah, they're my best friend, but constantly makes excuses not to be with them or whatever. That's not reciprocity. That's not give and take. That's someone giving, and another person being completely comfortable in their role as the backseat driver of the friendship. Not backseat driver, of the backseat passenger of the friendship. A backseat driver tells you what to do and how to do it. That's not right. All right, let's move on down to number 3, our third example of reciprocity. We've got trust and confidentiality. These go hand in hand. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this one because we've literally dedicated an entire episode to this, but we couldn't be talking about give and take if we did not talk about this example. Trust is a vital component. Okay, if someone is constantly confiding in you that you trust, if you genuinely trust this person and they're constantly confiding in you and you not in them, first of all, you're carrying on a heavier emotional load than you probably should be
Mhm.
because you've not been able to offset some of your emotions to the person. But also, it's just like that could in the long run damage your friendship because you have maintained those burdens, and if they end up coming back to you because they want to, confide in you again, and you're not ready to receive because you've not prepared yourself to also be receptive to get to taking not taking their load, but taking the opportunity to unload your own burdens, that could put a strain. Because what if they come to you and be like, oh my word, I've had a terrible experience, you're like, I'm not in the place to hear it right now, and then they get like offended or whatever, that could put a
Right.
strain that shouldn't have been there. And just because even though you trusted them, you didn't show that you trusted them. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. And your friend may not be inclined to share things with you if they see a repeated pattern of confiding in you and you not exactly being vulnerable with them.
Yeah. Reciprocity means that both friends honor the trust equally. There,
Yeah.
so we haven't even gotten into like betrayal of trust yet. We're just talking about like
Hmm.
being willing to share. Obviously, the top tier of the pyramid is your life partner, your spouse, but for those of you who don't have a spouse, you have to have meaningful connections with friendships to fulfill some emotional needs that you just have as a human. It doesn't make you weak to have, emotional needs that you can have with a friend, like to be able to talk about stuff like that. So, like I said, we haven't even talked about betrayal yet, but just having the trust that they will be there for you and you in turn will be there for them is going to just set you up for way more success than if you avoided the give and take of the emotional needs of trust and confidentiality. So while we're here, let's talk about the betrayal aspect of trust. If your trust is broken and your friend who you trusted and confided in broke your trust, give and take does not mean that you have a free pass to go and break their trust.
That's so good.
That's
Yeah.
not that's not what give and take means. It doesn't mean like, okay, well, because you broke my trust, I get one free pass to break yours. That's not how that works.
Hmm.
So just
Yeah.
have a clear mind, have a clear understanding that give and take is for a benefit. It is not for a harm. It's to be able to give of your love and receive love. It's be able to give of your trust and receive trust. And then obviously we talked about time and all that stuff, and we're going to get into more, but it's a positive. It's a positive. It's
Right.
not supposed to be a negative.
Yeah. And when you go through repeated broken trust with your friends, obviously there are boundaries you need to set in place, but setting boundaries is not the same as seeking revenge.
Mm.
So you should never set out to seek revenge.
Yeah, and the boundary that you make, I feel like, and Kaylee, you might disagree with this, but just for discussion's sake, the boundary that you set in a friendship, particularly in a best friendship, I kind of feel like you need to give an explanation for why you're setting that boundary. Yes? No?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's in a best friendship, for sure, you have to communicate, hey, I'm setting this boundary so they don't cross it. I mean,
Yeah.
how are they going to know not to cross it if you don't communicate it?
Yeah.
I don't think you need to communicate with friends and acquaintances, hey, I'm setting this boundary. They're really, there's no reason to
Yeah.
if you're not with them all the time.
And I guess if it's a personal boundary, like something that you're doing for yourself, you don't have to communicate it. You're like, okay, I'm talking to myself. I'm not going to talk about this person who always comes up in conversation when I'm with them. I I personally am not going to talk about it. I don't care if they do. Okay, that is not like you don't have to like lord that over them that this is the boundary that I'm setting. But if it's a boundary that's going to mutually benefit your friendship, then yeah, I would definitely say open up the floor to discussion and explain why you're doing it, because if you don't, there could be confusion, there could be hurt, there could be uh looking for answers in different places, which ends up causing gossip chains and all that kind of stuff. So it goes back to that very, very cliche thing that we talk about all the time is open communication. Not
Right.
not subtext, not games, not sending cryptic texts and hope they understand. No, just be
Right.
honest. You don't have to act like everything is a covert operation that needs a decoding machine on the other end to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Open communication just means being very plain. You don't have to be rude, but to make it clear about what you're saying. All right, we are going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
Okay, welcome back. So now we're moving on to number 4. Danielle, do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, number 4 of our reciprocity list of examples is shared responsibilities. You're gonna find this a lot in roommates. You're gonna find this a lot in people who need a helping hand. But it also just in regular standard friendships. You don't have to be roommates, but they often help each other with various responsibilities like moving, sharing
Yeah.
household chores, like that's the roommate kind of thing. If you need errands, we talked last week about how quality time could also be taking a burden off of someone's shoulders so that they can have quality time if they're in like a rough season or whatever.
Yeah.
So running errands for them, uh,
Yep.
and knowing that when you do that, it is not okay. I'm jumping ahead in my mind, so I need to back up. But when you run errands for a friend, you're giving, and when you do that, that they would do that for you. But stuff like that does not need to be at the forefront of your mind. Okay, I'm giving now, but I'm counting down the days until I get to take.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not a competition. It's not
Hmm.
you're not keeping score. Okay, I've given this many times. 3 times I've given. Okay, but they've only given me I've only been able to take one time. It's
Right.
not a scoreboard thing, right? So
Yeah.
shared responsibility is just an example of reciprocity.
Right. An example that comes to mind is my sisters with their kids. Um, if one of my sisters does an overnighter with one set of the kids, um, then my other sister will do an overnighter with her kids. And they don't necessarily like keep score, but it's like, hey, remember when you went here last month? Well, I'm going here this month, so can you watch my kids?
That happened when I don't know if we've talked about
So,
this on the podcast, but a few years ago, a big group of us the night before decided to fly to Disney World
oh
the
yeah.
next morning. So we're not talking Disneyland, which is, 6-hour drive south. We're talking about Disney World. So we were flying from California to Florida. We booked the flights that night, and the only thing that was going to stop us is if your sister, so Karina, was able to get someone to watch her daughter. And so she
Yeah.
calls your other sister, Carissa, and was like, hey, remember how I took both the kids this one weekend? She's like, so you owe me two. And I
She
was just
really
laughing.
keeping score.
She's keeping score. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm okay with that. If that means we get to go to Disney World. And Crystal was like, oh yeah, like of course, that's exactly what give and take means. She didn't say that, but that's
Yeah.
what she was saying, right? And so she took the kids that weekend and we were all able to go to Disney World.
Yeah.
11 hours later, we got on a flight, which was an awesome memory. But that is just an example of how give and take is not a planned thing. You don't say, okay, I'm gonna give January through June and then I'm gonna take July through December. It's not like that. It's as life moves and flows. You can't plan it out, and you can't be bitter if you're in more of a giving season right now than a receiving
Yeah.
season.
Right.
There's one other thing I want to hit on right here while we're at this one is that you don't take advantage of other people's generosity. If you know they're givers, don't just take from them because you know that they give a lot. There are people who uh giving gifts and acts of service is their love language, which is great. That is amazing. Everyone is entitled to their love language, but just because they're like that does not mean that you get to just tap that resource as often as you can because you want to be able to just get. So don't take
Right.
advantage of your friend's willingness to help.
Yeah. I definitely have a couple people in my life that are very, very giving. And I have had to um, kind of filter some of the things I say. I'm like, okay, I don't want to say this in front of them because they're just going to offer to pay for it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to tell them, oh, I can't swing that financially right now because I know they're going to jump on there and pay for it. And I don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great
so,
example.
yeah, right. So, the people who are big givers, yeah, kind of watch how you treat them, even though they're probably delighted to do it.
Yeah.
They do want to be appreciated, and they don't
Hmm.
want. They most likely don't want it. You do expect it.
Yeah. And they wanted to come from a place of genuine generosity and not you conniving your words and like planning how to say it. So like, okay, if I phrase it just right, I bet they'll jump in and pay for it or whatever. Like, and it comes, it's with acts of service too. So not just gifts, but also acts of service. Like if I say that I need this and oh, woe is me, no one will help me. And you know that they're gonna help you if you say it like that, that's taking
Mhm.
advantage. Be honest, be
Yeah,
open. Like, listen, I really need this, and I'm sorry to have to ask you to do this, but this is the season I'm in. So that is just a so much more of a respectable way of going about um shared responsibility than just expectation going into it. Just feeling like you know the person so well that if you craft your answer exactly right, then you'll get what you want every time.
right.
That's like a con artist level thing.
Okay. Number five is celebrating successes. So when one friend achieves something significant or has a major life event, reciprocity involves celebrating that achievement together and
Mm-hmm.
making a point to celebrate it. Um, I think in some friendships, you can see where jealousy kind of gets in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just not a good thing. You need
No.
to rejoice with them that rejoice, weep with them that weep. I don't know what that scripture is, Romans somewhere.
Come on,
um,
Quizzer, you can
and
do it.
I know we'll have to look it up. Um, but yeah, be genuinely happy for your friends, be happy for their success, and offer your support and your congratulations. And treat them when something big happens. Go out to lunch, give them a gift, throw a party with a few close friends. Be genuinely happy for your friends and their big achievements.
I can give a real world example of this right now, and this is not to embarrass you or put you on the spot, but you are the best with this celebrating successes.
Oh,
Anytime, like, so it's just my family's kind of nature to drop something in the group chat that's happened, whether good or bad. Like, sometimes it's like it's a lot, but everyone's really responsive and everything. So when I recently got my job, well, actually, it's back up last year. Last year, I finally got a student teaching placement, and it took forever. And Brett and Kayla, I'm sure it was Kayla's idea, sent a cookie to the school that I was just started working at on my first day, and
yeah.
celebrating my success. And then I got an interview at the school that I wanted to work with, and I got like I can't remember what it was, like a candle or something. And then my first day when when I got my job, like I actually had got offered, she brought me flowers. So she's celebrating my successes, like, and it's so sweet and honestly so unexpected every time. But Kayla,
Aw.
my lovely co-host, is just genuinely happy for me when things happen. And she's not the only one. Obviously, my family is supportive, but that was not really our nature before she got here, and now we're
Aw.
a lot better for it.
This is probably super rabbit trailing. But when I brought the cookie to the school, I put Miss Anderson on it. And little did I know there was another Miss Anderson in the school who almost ate her cookie.
Not only was she another teacher in the school, she was the one I was working with. She was my master
Yeah.
teacher. And so my host teacher, and they when it got delivered, it said Miss Anderson. And I was like, why would anybody give me the brand new teacher on campus, a crumble cookie? So I was like, this is clearly for her. I put it on her desk, and she opened it and said, who is Brayla?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was like, oh, I think that's mine. That's my brother and sister-in-law's names smushed together.
My
But
word,
that was
that's
like
hilarious.
embarrassing to give it to her, but then take it back. Like, that's a different type of give and take. But yeah, anyways, so I have real life examples of that like happening in my life all the time, is people celebrating my successes, and it's so nice to have that village and that support group.
Yeah.
And we will flip this a little bit and talk about the nastier side, the jealous side. Thankfully, that's not really something that we being meaning Kayla and I deal with, but it's definitely a real thing. And I know that some extended family members, not necessarily my family, but just in general, can get jealous of your successes and see the path that you take. And it's just tough for them because they know that it could have been their path if they had, tweaked their steps earlier in life or whatever. And it could be tough and it could be difficult for them to regulate those emotions when they come up. And so they will not celebrate your successes. This might happen with your friends sometime. It's not a pleasant feeling, but it's something that you'll have to navigate, not necessarily as a group, sit down, hold hands, and figure it out together, but it's something that you personally need to develop within yourself to intentionally say, I'm going to be happy for them when things go right
Yeah.
in their life, and I'm going to be supporting them when things go bad. I'm not going to dance on their grave and be like, ha ha, that happened to you, but not me. That is going to kill your friendship faster than anything that we've ever talked about is jealousy, envy, and celebrating in demise rather than celebrating in success. This next one, I'm actually going to give my real world example before I say what it is, just because I want to introduce it this way. But sometimes give and take is, like we've said in this episode, one-sided, but there's also sometimes you'll see in a friendship, a set of friends or a group of friends, there'll be one person who's like the peacemaker and who will go friend to friend and try to settle conflict within the friend group. Number 6, what we're talking about, conflict resolution, should not be a one-man job. This should not be someone that is constantly giving of themselves to try to make peace in the friendship or make peace in the friend group. Conflicts, they're a natural part of any relationship. They're going to come up. But in a reciprocal friendship, everyone is going to take responsibility in addressing these conflicts in a healthy
Right.
and constructive manner. It is not going to be one person who's like the sweetest in the group who's going to go around person to person and deal with your issues for you and air out everyone's issues and try to reconnect people. This is primarily what you're going to see in a friend group rather than, just you and your friend or whatever. Sometimes you will, because they'll be the one who's constantly trying to reconnect with you, but primarily you're going to see this in a friend group of three or more people, 3 to 8, where you got one person who is the go between. Because even in a group as small as 3, the one peacemaker and the 2 people who are having the conflict, it's not their job. Everyone should be
Yeah.
involved in addressing this conflict to restructure your friendship and make it better.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people can say, well, I could say, like, by nature, I'm just non-confrontational and I I don't feel comfortable addressing things. And so I kind of leave it up to the addresser in the friend group. And it's like, well, you need to learn not to be confrontational, but you need to learn to address things,
Yeah.
or that addresser is going to get burnt out
Yeah.
and you'll probably not resolve conflict effectively.
Yeah. You're just shoving responsibility off of someone else, whether you
Yeah.
are causing conflict or you're staying out of conflict. In the either way, if everyone's not pulling their weight a little bit to communicate openly, listen to each other's perspectives, work toward resolving the issues, instead of, you're going to get harbored resentment if you just keep
Yeah.
pushing the conflict away from you to let someone else deal with it. That's not giving and taking,
Right.
that's just ignoring it, and it's not healthy. It's not going to help anyone, and your friendship will suffer for it.
Yeah.
All right, number 7, we're going to talk about long-term investment in your friendship. Obviously, investment in the traditional sense means that you're putting in money. This is the traditional sense, to eventually that money will grow and you'll get more in return eventually. Long-term investment in friendship means both individuals are committed to maintaining a healthy relationship, and so therefore you're investing time and effort right now to have just as strong, if not stronger, friendship 10 years from now. This is not about, okay, if I give them 2 years of emotional support, then I will get 50 years of emotional support in return. No, it's an
Mhm.
ongoing thing. Your give and take is not going to end. You're not going to suddenly hit a point in your friendship where, okay, now I get to just take and they're going to do all the giving. That's not how it works in any relationship. It's not how it's going to work in your friendship. So, long-term investment is whatever you're doing right now is going to pay off in the future, but you can't just stop after a certain period. You have to keep going, keep growing, keep pushing yourself.
This is starting to sound like one of Pastor's sermons, pre-offering sermons about it being returned to you tenfold.
Yeah. Put in $100, get a Cadillac tomorrow. No, that's not how it works. You are sowing a seed just like you do in your offering at your
Yeah.
church, just like you do
Yeah.
in your college education, whatever it may be. Every seed you plant now still needs nurturing, still needs growing, still needs watering, and all those metaphors you can put with it in order to get truly decades long blessing. I used this example with my students the other day, and it's not original to me, it's just original to the dawn of man. But you take a corn cob, a thing of corn, and you eat that corn, well, then you just had one corn cob, and now you're done, and you don't have any more food. But if you take 10 kernels off of that cob and plant those, you're not taking away from your what you got right now to sustain you. You're still going to have essentially a whole cob of corn to eat and satisfy you, but you're also going to have 10 seeds that is going to absolutely radically change your future, because you're going to plant those, and then 10 stalks are going to come up with, 5 or 7 or 8, whatever stalks
Mhm.
on there, and then it just keeps going and growing and growing. So you don't just burn out your friendship right now, but you take it a little bit at a time and you reinvest it in for the future, so that it's a long-term
Yeah.
investment and you're growing that friendship all the way, you know, basically forever, your whole lifetime.
Yes.
And before we jump off this one, I do want to just say again, like we've talked about how friendships sometimes come in life seasons. So I know that people who I was friends with in my childhood, I'm not as close to now because of life seasons and whatever. But I am actually a pretty firm believer that if you implement these kind of things now, say in your teens or 20s or however old you are, you will still get the benefits of it way down the road, because you're planting the seed now. It's just the perfect example of this is Dr. Blash and my mom. So he passed away last year, which it hurt a lot to for him to go home to his reward, but he was my mom's very, very close friend for 40 years or whatever. They met in youth group. And so that time that they sewed together in the kingdom, working, growing, as they grew up and eventually married and had their own kids and that kind of thing, their families, her family, my family, and his family came together, and generations of friendship have now formed because
Yeah.
of the effort that they put in together of being friends when they're in youth group. Like that, you just can't, that stuff doesn't just happen. It took effort. Like they could have, when he went to the army, they could have never talked to each other again and been like, oh, that
Yeah.
was a life season. I hope he's doing okay. No, they were intentional in their friendship. And up until the week that he died, they were still in contact. Like then my family flew for the funeral, and now his kids are still in our lives and that kind of thing. And it's generations of friendship that have sprouted from that one instance of investment. All right, let's wrap up this episode with number 8. It's not really its own thing, but it's about balance. I mean, we've been talking about give and take this whole time, but we're specifically focusing on balance right here. And we've already touched on it, so we won't dwell a ton on it. But reciprocity isn't necessarily about keeping that strict tally, that score of who did what for whom. Like, okay, if you're in a friend group of 4 people, A, B, C, D, A bought B's lunch, and so now A has to buy lunch for C and D, or D took B and C out for coffee, and so now A needs it. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. It's not an exact score, and D does not need to have this expectation of, okay, all right, now B and C need to buy my coffee because I did it for them. Not how that works.
Yeah.
You do stuff out of the kindness of your
And
heart and generosity.
and it can be easy to slip into that mindset. Like personally, I don't slip into the well, they didn't do this for me mindset, but I slip into the mindset of like, oh my word, they've done this, this, and this, and like, what have I done recently? Like, oh my gosh, I have so much I owe them so much. And it's like, if your friends are really genuinely doing it out of the kindness of their heart, they're not keeping score.
Right.
And yes, it needs to be reciprocal, and you need to do nice things for your friends, but you don't need to fret over all the nice things they do for you and feel like you're not doing enough
Yeah.
if you really are trying.
That brings to mind a story. Okay, this was hilarious and we laugh about it to this day, but you know, my friend group, we used to go to Crateville kind of a lot before COVID when it was had the normal hours. And one day we were driving down there and I just felt like this, it sounds so weird to say, but like spirit of generosity, just like it's like a feeling of generosity just overcame me. And I was like, I am buying their crepes tonight. I'm doing it. And they're gonna argue with me. I know they're gonna argue with me. So I am going to on the way down there just tell them, hey guys, I'm doing this. Please don't argue with me. Like this is my gift to you guys. Like
Oh,
this is on me, right? I barely had a job. Like I'm not rolling in the dough. I was just like, it just came over me and I wanted to do it. And we get down there and I reached down to get my wallet and I had forgotten it at home. And so I made this big old speech about how don't argue with me. I
not
did. I did. And so Lydia ended up having to
so
buy
bad.
mine for me because I forgot my wallet. So
That is so bad.
and I did not make that speech
Okay,
to like prove how generous I was. I was truly
yeah,
saying like don't argue with me. Like I want to do this. I truly want to do this. And then we get there and I had forgotten my wallet.
I'm sure that was a good laugh.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We just told that story to someone the other day and we were howling.
That is so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so yeah, it's not about keeping score. It's not about, making sure that since she bought mine, I buy hers. Yeah, we have that kind of thing that we do. We don't keep track, but it's kind of like I remember, oh yeah, she bought her last dinner, so I'm gonna pick up this one. It's not about keeping score,
Right.
but it's just about give and take.
Yeah.
Um,
One of my sister's pet peeves is when she does something nice for me and I cash app her or Apple Pay her. Karina, she gets so upset. She's like, why did you do that? Like, I wanted that. I have joy in doing this for you.
yeah,
And you like stole that from me. And so now I know it makes her mad, even though like I'm not trying to make her mad. I'm just trying to pay for my stuff.
yeah,
So I know it makes her mad. So now I kind of remember the nice things she does for me. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get her coffee today.
yeah.
You know, I'm sure she
That
enjoys that a lot.
that reminds me of whatever my dad says when he tries to give like an offering to a missionary or an evangelist or whatever, or pay for someone's meal and they like fight him on it. He says, don't steal my blessing.
Yeah.
Like, because he's like, I'm going to get blessed for being a blessing. So that's just like his jokey way of saying it. He's not actually saying like, don't steal my blessing. But,
Yes. Yes.
he's just, that's a nice way to cover it and to shake it up a little bit.
Love that.
Ironically, I've got another Blash family story that comes to mind is we were visiting St. Louis when I was probably like, I don't know, 10 or something like that. And it always so all there was 8 kids, 5 of them, 3 of us, and then my parents. So the parents would go out to dinner and then all of the kids would go out to dinner because the girls were older. So we were able to do that. And we had to go through a restaurant for the youngest kid because he did not like Mexican food, which is where we were going. And so he wanted a cheeseburger with no cheese and ketchup. And they put cheese on his burger. So we had to go through the drive through twice, but that's not the point of the story. The point is that the daughter paid for it because he didn't have any money. And I was like, oh my word, like you just paid for his food without, he's got to pay it back. And she's like, no, that's what we do in our family. We just know that they'll get us back when they can or whatever. She's like, it's not like if I
Oh.
borrow $5, I'm keeping tabs. I'm like, that's how it is in my family.
100%.
You borrow money in my family, you get a coffee, like okay, that'll be $5.50 in my Apple Pay right now, please. And it was like that even back then too. So I was like shook in the drive-through the second time around when she was trying to explain to me. She's like, yeah, we don't like keep score if you owe us money. I'm like, could never be the Andersons, but whatever. That's like 3 rabbit
Oh,
trails deep, but that's what we're
I
getting
know,
at with
right?
give and take is that it's not about keeping score. It's about both parties trying equally as hard to maintain the friendship and reciprocity, like in essence, it's harmonious balances, exchanges of care and trust and support and all the things that we covered today. Friends who practice reciprocity, you're going to cultivate that deeper, meaningful connection that you just wouldn't get if one person was carrying the load for each other.
Yeah.
You just got to get that mutual respect going and understanding that it's not a race, it's not a scoreboard, it's not a whatever you might think it is. It's about putting in equal effort or similarly equal effort to have that investment long term, and then you will have a friendship. If both people are trying as hard as they should to maintain a friendship, life seasons are not going to affect your
right, exactly,
your connectivity.
When there's reciprocity in a friendship, connection's really boosted, and you're really minimizing your chances of resentment too.
Absolutely. I am way less likely to get grumpy with someone when I know that they've done so much for me. I can't cop an attitude with someone who has given so much of themselves to me and to our friendship. So you can only be benefited by having a similar outlook on give and take. Well, that was reciprocity, and thank you so much for sticking around and listening. You know what we have not done in a while?
What?
Oh, would you rather?
Oh my. Okay, this is on the spot, guys, not scripted.
I would like to remind the listeners that Kayla does not have would you rather power. I have taken sole would you rather power because she would make them horrible and hard and terrible. I told her she could earn a spot in would you rather, but instead I will be coming up with the would you rathers so that they are fun and not horrible.
Mine are so fun. They get you thinking.
They get you crying. All right, Kayla. Would you rather? Would you rather be chronically underdressed or overdressed? Like not seriously every single day, but by and large, 6 out of 7 days, would you rather be chronically underdressed for everything you showed up to or overdressed?
I gotta say overdressed. Because I think underdressed can come off as disrespectful. And overdressed is just glamorous. So
yeah, I would have to agree.
Overdressed.
I can't stand the process of getting dressed up, especially overdressed, but I just can't imagine showing up to church in like a t-shirt or like a sweatshirt or something. That's just, I would rather be chronically overdressed, which a lot of people in the world think that we are just in our day-to-day, just by wearing normal modest clothes, they consider us overdressed. So it was just, okay, well, that was would you rather. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 9. Next week, episode 10, we will be talking about the impact of life transitions on friendships. Kayla and I have some unique takes on this just because of the way our lives have turned out and the way we have met new people and that kind of thing.
Don't forget to submit those questions. Email us, friendeavorpodcast@gmail.com, or visit our website, friendeavor.net, and the form is on the homepage. So submit those questions. We want to get them answered. We want to help you.
Absolutely. And in those emails, in those forms, let us know if you'd rather remain anonymous. We could definitely leave your name out of it and just go forward with your question, but we still want to hear from you. So tune in next week and we will see you then.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.